generally today the goal is to look at these first 6 months of the year, look at what they were saying towards the end of last year and kind of what expectations they've been setting, and make a little bit of a judgment call on how they're doing. It's all subjective, but I thought it'd be fun to do together. So, what were they saying at the end of last year is what we were going to get.
So if it's all right with you, I'd like to indulge myself, maybe switch out my CIG cap and put my backer hat on and tell you what has me excited about this next year for the persistent universe in a segment that I'm calling Disco Lando's Star Citizen 2020 Forecast. Now, without talking specific dates...
That's why. Okay, so YouTube saw it as Star Citizen 2020 Forecast instead of Star Citizen 2020 Forecast.
Let's discuss what's being targeted and currently on track for release in just the first half of 2024, starting with Master Modes, the new way to pilot and operate ships we've been discussing since CitizenCon 2952.
We definitely got Master Modes. If you haven't heard that we don't have Master Modes in game, then I can't imagine you've been talking with the community because it doesn't stop coming up.
And you can be sure that we'll update on it more when the time comes. And of course, when your ships aren't in flight, they can be stored in the newly persistent hangars that are arriving with freight elevators.
All right, here's the big one, honestly. This is like probably the biggest thing on the list, and it actually got delayed. Technically, we've got 2 more weeks until the 6-month mark, but I don't think this is going to be in the live servers by then. Maybe Evocati, possibly PTU. But this one is a little bit behind, but we do know we're pretty much for sure that it's coming sometime in the next few weeks. So I'm going to count this one as released. It's not released yet, but as far as this video is concerned, it will be by the time we're halfway through the year or within a month of being halfway through the year.
Freight kiosks and the new cargo transaction system that we've shared on both ISC and this year's CitizenCon. Now, all combined, they form the next major evolution of cargo careers and will also have far-reaching, broader implications for the entire Star Citizen experience. And then outside of vehicles and hangars, there's also a variety of FPS combat improvements coming to the first half of 2024.
All right, these are in.
With improvements to reloading, the weapon wear and misfire system, scopes and dynamic cross...
We don't have the weapon wear and misfires.
With improvements to reloading, the weapon...
This part was something they showed at CitizenCon, so that's definitely... That one's nowhere to be seen.
Wear and misfire system, scopes and dynamic crosshairs,
That's
and charge and drain, and even more.
Charge and drain is not in. They said that's going to be in 4.0 though. Still tentative, but it's definitely not in the game. So right now we're at 2 features from this talk that aren't in yet.
We'll be able to show
3 if you count the freight elevators. The scopes are in. The stuff that they added, they wanted to add the scopes is in.
You once we return in the new year. And then outside of strictly FPS combat, there are new player character features coming, like the updates to the EVA system.
Okay, we got some updates to the EVA system, not this what they're showing, which is the hand using your hands, but we did get a new change to the animations, the movement, and it's kind of decoupled now, which I love.
The visor and lens system.
Yes.
Loot screens.
Yes.
Default item interactions and the personal interaction system.
Not the physical touch. Not the physical touch, but the button replacement
system. Loot screens. Default.
So we got this interaction menu, and then we got the default prompts and the change with the interaction prompts. We didn't get the physicalized touch yet.
Item interactions and the personal interaction system. And there's even new shopping and mission apps in development now. And while we're talking about...
Got the shopping app, but not the missions app.
Apps, the first half of 2024 is also currently scheduled to see the arrival of our new character customizer with things like tattoos, piercings, scars, and yes, Virginia, it's true, beards.
That stuff is scheduled for 4.0.
As for how many and of what kind, only Andre knows for sure, but you can bet we're going to ask him.
So we did get beards.
And then, of course, if you're in-game, there's also a little thing called Mobiglass.
Yep, got that.
And an awfully big thing called Star Map.
We've gotten that too.
They're both getting their big updates in the first half of next year.
So he's actually being pretty clear about what's coming in the first half, but I think at the end of this, he still says something like all of this is coming in the first 6 months. So we'll go back through it again, but I think that was the first time he said they were getting their updates in the first half. And we did get the Star Map and the Mobiglass.
Have I mentioned those enormous distribution centers that'll be the new microcosm homes for every gameplay and mission feature that exists in Star Citizen? as well as the 4, 5, 6, let's just say several new and updated vehicles that are making their way to the persistent universe in just the first 6 months of 2024? I did, just now. Oh, you can check those off.
Oh, I just missed that. Sorry, I was reading comments. I don't know. I don't know what your comment means, Karis, but there's just an interaction update. That's all I took from them saying interaction update. Yeah, I don't think the tattoos will be coming till Pyro either. 4.0 is when they had it marked on the roadmap. Star map updating waypoint icons when. They said they have a marker update that they're working on. Maybe that'll come in 4.0.
Gameplay and mission feature that exists in Star Citizen, as well as the 4, 5, 6, let's just say several new and updated vehicles that are making their way to the persistent universe in just the first 6 months of 2024.
Did we get 6 new vehicles? I believe that's wrong. I feel like we've only gotten like 2 or 3. You got the 2 Pulses, Saber Firebird, Hornet, and that's it, right? Retaliator? Oh, Argo. The Argo one. Okay. Yeah, we got 6. And the Medivac, you're right. Cool. So there's 7 updated or new vehicles in the first 6 months, as well as these locations. These are in the game too. Not as great, I think, as we were hoping with the missions they showed us first, but they're definitely better. I think that like the missions that we've gotten with these still get repetitive very quickly, but they play much better than the other places we've had so far.
This in Star Citizen, as well as the 4, 5, 6, let's just say several new and updated vehicles that are making their way to the persistent universe in just the first 6 months of 2024. I did, just now. Oh, you can check those off. Whew. Okay, so real talk. CIG hat back on. Now, you're probably looking at your screen and saying to yourself, what about Pyro and 4.0? Well, don't fret. The things that we just covered are those that aren't too dependent on continuing foundational tech work like server meshing. So we feel pretty confident in targeting everything that we just shared for the first 6 months. But when
there's the oopsie in this one. He does say that all of that is targeted for the first 6 months. Doesn't mean it's coming, but definitely some of those things are going to miss the mark. Charge and drain, tattoos, piercings, weapon wear and tear, and freight elevators. Am I missing anything? And the physical interaction. Yeah. So there's like 4 or 5 things that aren't going to make those first 6 months.
When it comes to something as enormous as the complete Pyro system in Alpha 4.0, well, that's where the new preview channel comes into play. Now that said, Alpha 4.0 is currently targeting a summer 2024 release, but that won't mean that you have to wait until then to play it or learn more about it. That's because in 2024, we'll continue doing play tests like the one we just completed, and you'll be able to follow along with its development firsthand on the preview channel. That's the planets, moons, space stations, settlements, and outlaw lifestyle that comes within the Pyro system, but also an entire host of additional new features, content, and quality of life improvements like, fully functional jump points, the new quantum travel system, new vehicle HUD and MFD work.
Wait. Hey, okay, see, I know that's not confirmation, that's not a promise, but I'm sitting here looking at the different features and looking at the things they have planned for 4.0, and I'm looking at the roadmap, and I'm like, there's no fucking way we're not getting the quantum travel rework in 4.0, right? But it's not on the release view, and it's definitely a big enough item to be on there. You can quote me on this. You can clip me on this. I think that we're getting it in 4.0. This basically confirms it to me. I mean, obviously this is December talk and anything can change, but I just don't see us getting 4.0 and making this big jump into a new version of the game without getting the quantum travel work, without getting quantum boost and getting an update to that system, because they halfway updated quantum travel now and the icons are annoying and the system doesn't quite work how you want it to. So I see them doing that for 4.0.
Resource management, hacking, and much, much more, all being worked on in tandem. The preview channel will let you and us test 4.0 together while maintaining the stability of the persistent universe with all those other great additions we just discussed. And then, in the summer of 2024, 2 become 1. and we can avoid that thing that didn't quite go the way that we'd hoped.
The holiday live stream?
And then, just because we're cheeky, there are still some things better left for you to discover on your own. And don't forget, we haven't even talked about the back half of the year yet. All in all, 2024 is shaping up to be the...
Okay, so there's stuff missing, but actually they did pretty good at delivering on that, on the stuff that they said there. And he did say feeling confident. Yeah, this, again, none of this is promises. These are just the things they're targeting. And as you can see, some of those things slip. Some of those things make it in without them saying anything. And some of them slip. And then if you go to the release view of the roadmap, we can take a look at those features and where they're actually sitting on here. So in terms of gameplay, we've got... Oh, they don't even show that here. Okay, and characters, additional customization, including facial piercings, and you know, they actually didn't say tattoos here. So maybe we won't get tattoos in 4.0 either, just the piercings. But that's a feature that we know for sure isn't coming in the first 6 months, as well as charge and drain. Where is that? Here we go. This is also something he had mentioned for the first 6 months that they're targeting. Doesn't sound like it's going to make it as it's scheduled for 4.0. So I think they're doing okay. They're doing okay, and I think the fact that they got live tests, or rather, I guess, PTU tests, preview channel tests of server meshing, is a big part of making this year feel more substantial. In every year previous to this, as they talked about the things that would help the game come together, it was always talk. There's a letter from the chairman, or a monthly report, or an ISC, or some kind of announcement. But this time, players actually got to get in and experience server meshing. So I think that helped build confidence for how this year's going. I would say, at least according to what we just saw, they're fairly on track, but... they've got some stuff here that's going to be slipping. This is looking like a Q3 2024 edition. This is also looking like a Q3. See, this was late. See, I did this wrong. What I should have done was kept this column as when it would actually get delivered, and then the column on the left of when it was scheduled to get delivered. That way I could keep track. So that's a Q3. This is looking like a Q3, possibly. Wait on that. You'll find some redundancy on here. It's not easy to break them out into separate features. Physical interaction. That's looking like a Q3. TTK, force reactions, derelict settlements. All right, now let's go back to CitizenCon of last year. That's where the real drop of all these features is. And first, we should find Chris at the end saying what he says.
One of the real reasons why we wanted to show you this CitizenCon is because we've hit an inflection point on a lot of the features, as in they're either finished or they're in polishing stage, which is why we're showing them. So everything that we've been showing you here at CitizenCon is our intention, not making 100% promise, just so everyone remembers that, to get them into...
Nobody will remember that, Chris. All of the quotes will leave that out.
Star Citizen through next year. So it's not going to be gated on having to be after Squadron 42. So we are...
Wait, what? Sorry, I completely blanked out for that.
To get them into Star Citizen through next year. So it's not going to be gated on having to be after Squadron 42.
Does he just mean all the features? Yeah, okay. He just means all the features they're talking about. So this is the statement I was looking for.
So we're planning over the next, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 of next year hopefully everything that we've shown you, you will have in your hands playing inside Star Citizen.
Dude, see, okay, he says that, but then wait for it. Wait for it. See this guy here? He's been here before. This is not his first CitizenCon.
And it's very gratifying for the team and myself to finally be able to show you a lot of this. One of the advantages of being able to go and iterate on these features in Squadron was that we were able to do it without having to release every 3 months and make sure the old system worked while the new system was working, so we could actually really polish the features, which I hope you could see when we showed you the updated UI stuff, the updated FPS stuff, the updated flight stuff, the character stuff, which is something we're very proud of, because this is, after all, an MMO. You want to have as much freedom to create the character you want to create.
To be quite honest, I don't blame him for seeming bored if he did. I don't think he seems bored. Seems like Chris. That's how Chris talks. But this is the end of oh god, there's so many layers to how much waiting there was for this. I bet once they did the server meshing demo, he was checked out. I'd be like, okay, we gave the message we needed to give. Let me go home.
So, as you may have guessed, and Brian Chambers may have let slip a bit earlier, we are
Squadron.
feature complete on Squadron.
So, yeah, I think that was really what I was looking for there.
A lot of what you're going to see is going to be coming into Star Citizen over the next 12 months.
Okay, there it is. So that was the first quote that he gave.
A few little things will come into 322 at the end of this year, but definitely next year, a lot of what you'll be seeing will be coming in, and it's going to make a dramatically different experience in Star Citizen.
Why does he go from saying a lot of everything you'll be seeing to everything we showed you? Bro, there's no way we're seeing base building by the end of the year.
Showing you here at CitizenCon is our intention, not making 100% promise, just so everyone remembers that, to get them into Star Citizen through next year. So it's not good.
Okay, so with that being said, let's look at some of the stuff that was going on at CitizenCon. We're just going to kind of jump through and see what was happening. There are some things here that are more easily rememberable, things that were like very in your face, that made a lot of sense, that we can remember easily. There are other things that like kind of have slipped out of our mind. And one of those things is this here. This is something that they haven't talked about, haven't mentioned, hasn't showed up on any monthly reports, on any ISC, Star Citizen Live, didn't even get talked about at CitizenCon for the rest of the time after this presentation. I'm wondering where this is. But check this one out.
Those assets and storage are a key part of the Frontier aesthetic. This drives the feeling of survivability. But from here, we thought it'd be really cool to give the functionality, but also some customization options. So let's take a look at a video we just developed internally, and this is for modular storage items on the player.
I love this music. So, cool system. That is a very cool system, but we haven't quite seen it yet. And like I said, nothing about it. So we'll see if that comes in by the end of the year, but so far, nothing really. Now, this whole segment is about kind of armor and specialization, which is something that they started with the dynamic crosshair. And I think that was a great way for them to at least get started on introducing us to more kind of specialized ideas of armor and wearing armor for certain reasons. As we move on, you start to see more stuff that's mainly Pyro and 4.0 themed, so it's not really going to be stuff that we would have seen by now. We'll have to see what happens with 4.0. So this is like the tattoos. They've talked about this. These are actually mainly going to be something you can earn via reputation with gangs. So like as you progress through your missions with the gangs, they might give you access to customize yourself with different tattoos that are exclusive to them. I think that's a great way to do it, but they're also talking about tattoos in the character customizer.
So this gets aesthetic.
Different gangs. This is stuff that I think is going to be pretty standard for coming in with Pyro. I wouldn't...
Utility.
I mean, the dusters were literally in within a couple of months. These guys spawned into the game in 3.22. So I don't really have much worry that they're going to be able to get these things in, these different factions. But then there's also Hygiene they get to, which is kind of linked to actor status T2. Something we went over just last week, I think it was. Pretty big deal. This talks about Hygiene, NPC status tracking, cybernetic limbs, DNA integrity, medical insurance, multiple bytes, and cloning. So they're starting to get into the development talk of this, but Ian Leyland is an art guy, so this might not be functional. This might be more a design side. Yeah, Hygiene is a thing. As a life sim kind of game, Hygiene is meant to be something that is focused on via ships. Do you have a ship that has hygienic facilities or not? That kind of thing will make a difference when you're running passenger transport missions, when you have multiple crew on your ship, when you are dealing with the life support system. All of these things are meant to kind of factor into the idea that you're taking the right ship for the right job. If you're not going for a long time, you don't have to worry about hygiene. You have a different selection of ships you can take. Different things can remove or lower or raise that hygiene value, however you want to look at it. So using a shower on your ship might give you 90% back of whatever that value is, whereas going to the bathroom might give you like 30, or washing your hands might give you 10. Not to say that you have to do all of these things separately, but depending on what facilities you have on your ship, the easier it is for you to get clean. And I do think that will actually factor into things like radiation too, because they've started to talk about the idea that you have to scrub off radiation. And if you meet people, and it really depends on who you're meeting, I guess, whether or not they're like some kind of bigwig executive or something. If you meet people and you are very dirty or not properly dressed for the scenario, they'll notice, and that could have an effect on whether or not they give you a job. How does this make the game fun? Like, should it be available for roleplay but not as functionality? Not everything in the game is fun, and I think that makes a lot of people unhappy. There's probably a lot of subjective opinion on what is or is not fun and how much fun there should be in a game, but like the idea of dying in a game isn't fun. It's a consequence for not doing something. The idea of having a debuff isn't necessarily fun. It's like a complication. The idea of having to use the bathroom isn't fun. It's supposed to encourage people to make different choices in the game. For a lot of people, picking up boxes and putting them down is not fun. But it's also a way to emphasize certain types of ships and certain types of gameplay. And actually, for some people, it is fun. No offense to y'all. Let's move on. So, cloth tech. Star cloth. Y'all think Star cloth is coming in? I'm not going to lie. It's a great cloth simulation. It looks great. But most people don't care.
Cloth is hard. Guys have to run upstairs. And even more difficult, it needs to hold up in high-end cinematics.
The commissioner. Far propelled EVA is when you run out of your EVA fuel. It's already functional in the game, actually. Just a little cheat code.
So use the black vertex color.
Starcloth. Yeah, we'll see. And then they get in the character customizer. We've already seen plenty of this, so we'll continue on. Tons of character customizer, and it's functional in the game. Still got work to do, but they've done a good job with it, I think. You'll be able to avoid hygiene if you don't care about interacting with respectable organizations. There will be places that don't care if you smell like you've been wearing the same clothes for a month. But if you want to meet someone at an upscale place or business, they won't let you pass the front door if you scare off customers. Yeah, just like everything else, you'll be able to avoid it probably if you really want to. Did they change up the prone? I'm pretty sure they did. These prone animations are in the game too, right? I don't know if they've improved the ladders, but this is also a big thing they've been working on.
We're gonna let you look around so you can.
And I mean, like, if we're talking about ladders, I have to take a little dig at Bethesda, because, like, ladders were their thing for a while.
We're gonna let you lean on the ladders so that you can avoid obstacles or peek around corners. And this all got a full new animation set. It looks amazing, especially with all this beautiful Starcloth sliding. So with the power slide, you inject a burst of speed.
Okay, list of stuff that we've gone over today that's not in the game. Sliding. What else did we touch on that's not here? The modular storage. Hygiene. Everything Pyro, basically. So that includes the gangs and stuff, locations, space stations, planets, that stuff. The ladder animations aren't there? Ladder improvements. Starcloth. Tattoos.
Profile, you become a smaller target. It doesn't come for free. And hip fire. And as I come out in the exit, I can ADS, I can lean. I could be so in the last. To finish this in the
radiation
demo.
This is going to add in the exploration, I think.
I lost my thought. Bone, can you press the button? Push on your body. There. So in the middle, you got the amount of radiation that being pushed on your body. If you have a directional source, it's based on your body surface and your distance to that source. So by going behind the cover here, I can completely cut off all the radiation. So I can use that. And then on the left, we have an icon that has a shield.
If it's based on your body surface, then that'd be interesting to know. When you have radiation, when you have armor that can block radiation, does that mean if your legs are unarmored but your chest is armored, will you receive less than somebody who has full armor? I think that's might be what they're saying. But it could also be just be based on the exposure of your actual armor to the radiation source.
Shield around it. Now, that shield works in two ways, right? First of all, it comes from your outfit, so depending on what you're wearing, you're going to have a better or less accurate shield, right? It has a threshold. As long as your radiation doesn't exceed the threshold, the shield will hold true. It'll scrub all the radiation off, and you can stay there as long as you like. But as the
what he's talking about here is down in the bottom left corner here, you can see there's a little outline over the player icon. This is meant to be a sort of outer shell that our armors are going to have. I don't think they have them right now. Something that helps to protect against stuff like this.
Peeling off. When the radiation gets higher, the shield will peel off. And, you know, the radiation sickness kicks in right at the end of the video here. And my health just deteriorates super, super quick. So, yeah, that's not great. Okay, so we're going to see some more radiation in the next section. So I would like to...
All right, we got the interaction system.
Any item that falls into the same category.
So this is definitely added in 323. But the interactions themselves were not added. They're pretty cool too. Let's check them out.
And has never been so satisfying and fun. I don't know, I just kind of like go.
It's a nice touch. I like it. Plywood Box,
Fine.
thank you for the sub, by the way. Gonna sabotage Holston and Drayton so you can catch up. You don't got too much to go.
Okay, so let's continue with this theme of tactile experiences.
So, physical interactions. No go. Really should be, gosh, also keeping track of how many features are in the game.
The next thing I want to talk to you about are usable interactables. So usables are objects that exist. Look at this.
It's a little UI usability update. Quality of life. Just kind of drags you into the screen.
And look at that. When you trigger it, I'm like, whew.
Basically just make sure that the overall screen is full screen, no matter what you are, where you are, what you're doing. So just a UI quality of life there. We got the looting screen is in the
We
game.
wanted to make it as
Do it, and then you're gonna reach maximum.
This is something that they barely touched on. And overall, I think ever since it was mentioned at CitizenCon 2022, they've been very quiet about this. But the skill system, there's supposed to be a skill system in this game, and you're supposed to be able to improve your skills a little bit by doing those actions. We don't know how far it's going to go, but you can hear here a little bit what they have in mind.
Gameplay, and I'm gonna give you an update on weaponware. Right, so takedowns is an important part of our stealth encounters. So this is where we're gonna add some player skill progression. So gonna move you through different action sets. You're gonna start out by struggling. You might fail. Of course, this sort of added time and the extra noise you're making is really gonna increase the risk of detection. You're gonna get faster the more you do it. And then you're gonna reach maximum efficiency. Check this one out. So he's so fast you can barely see him do it, and then he guides the body to the floor, so it makes almost no noise, right? We're gonna explore some more variation beyond our unarmed and our knife takedowns, like sedative injection pens and contextual takedowns. So this guy on the railing here, let's see what we can do about him. So by using the environment, we can do a more efficient takedown than maybe our skill level would have allowed. And it certainly looks a lot cooler. And we're going to be able to use this to get to enemies that might be otherwise difficult to get to with our normal takedowns, like a pilot strapped into his pilot seat.
So yeah, a skill system is a slippery slope, and we don't really know fully how they're going to do it. So we'll see. But the idea of having different types of takedown animations, like this seems like a lot of work to try and implement and not have it be a big part of the game. And I know, people keep saying, oh, it's going to be small things. It's not going to make a huge difference, but I just can't see them putting this much work into a skill system like this, a passive skill system that'll have more than just takedowns and be involved in it and not try to make it a bigger part of the game that people care about. So I'm watching it warily. We'll see what they do with it. But yeah, that's a little bit of a mention of the skill system. I don't think that's something they really were showing as, oh, we're going to do this in the next 12 months. More so the animations there, which are not in the game. All right, FPS scanning and radar.
We allow you now to charge up that ping, and by doing so, we can see further, and we can see through obstacles, and we can populate more information into our data bank that then shows up in our box outs here. So you get the name, and you maybe get the race, and maybe the faction, and you can use this information to figure out where's the weak link, which enemies can I take down without being discovered. There's a risk here, okay? So there's a charge up time, means you can't do it all the time. It's going to recharge slowly. You see the bar at the top slowly going down. Until that goes all the way down, I can't ping. I can't even do a short ping. And it's going to spike my emissions or my signature. So an enemy with the right equipment or tech level might discover me. Okay, so let's move on to some talk about weaponware. So here we're going to see a simulation of a weapon getting more and more worn over time. We're going to expand this beyond weapon and the more reliability. Have a
weapon wear and malfunctions.
With a pristine scope or a pristine rifle with a worn scope. Check this one out. There you go. Only thing they're going to change is Gemini pistol in the little window and a worn one in the big window. And you can see the visual effects. It's belching out smoke here because it's very worn, right? It's telling you, you know, it's time to get this one changed. And you should be able to hear the audio as well. It's get growlier. Okay, on to some consequences. So it's not all visual, so we're going to start with misfire. So the first thing that's going to happen is you press a trigger, your gun doesn't fire. The second thing that happens in this video, you got... I hope you guys know what's happening. So he goes, and then it goes click. That's the bullet getting lodged in the chamber, right? So we've got to fix it. So it's telling us to fix it. We're hitting the button, Our enemy's firing on us. So you got some options. You don't have to fix it. You could holster your gun. You could pull out a new gun. You could use that new looting interface that Ines showed to grab a better gun. Okay. Okay, I'm going to finish this section with the features as...
Weapon malfunctions are in-game? I haven't seen that. You think it'll be too complicated? I think the main challenge that they need, they can make it as complicated as they want. They just need to make sure that the game is approachable and fun if you never even touch the complicated stuff. If you're just doing level 1 bounties where you're going out in a ship, not customizing your components, your power, or anything, and just shooting and having some fun, I think that's reasonable if it's still complicated. Scope improvements. Oh, sorry, this is iron sight improvements and FPS improvements in general.
Okay.
We've seen all this in game.
Thank you very much. Cheers. We also have new procedural animation over our ADS. So previously, as if you play right now, you basically have a linear pose-to-pose transition. And sure, it's there, but it can move, just ease in. Iron sights. So sci-fi weapons are chonky. They're full of detail. They look really cool, but a lot of that detail can potentially get in the way sometimes. So you've seen this is a change to the Kana, where we have raised the weapon sight and given what we call the target acquisition window more room to breathe. So if you're aiming at somebody, you can just generally see a lot more. So optics aren't a crutch anymore. So you can see this on the Ravager, and you can see this on the Custodian.
They moved my iron sights.
So now it goes ballistic when you fire it. The magazine count has also increased to allow for that just crazy feeling that the pistol gets. Cool.
Yeah, the LH86 is much more fun like that.
So, it's the other video. That's the optic one. There you go. Thank you. These are the Vault weapons. So, Vault is primarily based around controlling a heat of a weapon. These weapons have the potential to overheat. And if they overheat, you'll be unable to fire. And they will enact differently. So some weapons will just basically be beams from the get-go. Some will go into beams. Like you see, this one goes into a beam once it reaches a certain level of heat. And it's really fun because these are quite powerful weapons, and you basically want to manage the heat and keep it in that ideal spot. Okay, cool.
Very okay.
And
I can't wait for those. We've
improvements.
been waiting a long time for these weapons. When's the first time they showed them to us? 2021. We got to see the first, I think, concept introductions of these Volt weapons, and they look so cool. And we've been waiting a while, so it's cool to see them finally in the game.
So it's going to start out being like a projectile shooting weapon as you start firing. It will then evolve into a beam. So it'll start out with a tug, 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 tug.
Was he pretty close with that sound effect? Would you guys say that's what that sounded like? Let's try it again.
They see this one goes quite powerful. Okay, cool.
I think it was kind of like that. That was pretty accurate, right? They could just put that sound in for the weapon itself. Call it a day. I think the issue they'll have is essentially the complexity of PvP people might run into. They need to make sure to limit PvP. Now, Don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean putting walls and barriers between where people can do certain stuff. They just need to make sure there are places where PvP is not as valuable. And if you don't want to experience that kind of gameplay, you can rest fairly certain that you won't. If you play a game for 40 hours and have 2 PvP encounters, I think that's reasonable. Okay, so this is an interesting one. This is talking a little bit about... This is getting a little bit into the quantum system with AI traits and stuff. Give you a little look at this.
New opportunities you have. And now it's interesting to see how the NPC are going to react to that. So the goal of Star Citizen is to build a breathing and living environment where your actions matters, and the NPC you will find in the universe needs to have the same opportunities and same limitations that you have. So when we play a game, we want you to spend the time that feels memorable, that feels special, right? Something you can remember and talk about. So we want you to give you a challenge to overcome, but also a challenge that is fun and doesn't feel repetitive and boring. So when we look at FPS encounter, we want to build variety. We want to give the designers, like Zach, the ability to craft combat scenarios, not just to put NPC in the level. And we need to make sure that he can tweak something such that he can experience the unique play style and the play space that you have. So Star Citizen can benefit from tons of unique environments. So for those environments, we want you to have different type of fun. So what we look at today is some of the tools that they have to achieve this goal and bring the AI to the next level. So the first tool we're going to look at today is the NPC trait system. So we spoke about this in the past, and we have now available for designers the initial set of traits they can use to influence their behaviors. So those are some of the ones that are available to the designers. Today we're going to focus on the combat traits, because we have traits that also apply to the peaceful situation and the social environment, but those are the ones that influence NPCs during a combat scenario. And traits, you can imagine them as characteristics NPCs have or don't have. So through the usage, we can make sure the combat feels different from one encounter to another. Traits in tech-wise, are just traits and tags that we can apply to character instance, character classes, but code can also apply them automatically based on specific rules. For example, if you see somebody with a rocket launcher, those will apply, an example, the sentry trait automatically, because those weapons are weapons that work well at range, so you want them to not push forwards to you.
Okay, so I think we've gotten this partially implemented. I feel like I've noticed a difference in the way AI work separate of each other. Some of them do slightly different things, but they also do things like this where they try to revive each other, which makes a big difference to playing the game.
Can also do the same with you. So if you are down in critical condition, they can come. So you can go there, you can check it, check the pulse, see the state, and if he can be helped, he can basically execute the right healing process. If he needs a med pen, he will use the med pen. If he needs to shake him to wake him up, he will shake him up. And if he needs to unrestrain him, he will unrestrain him. And your crew members can also do the same with you. So if you are down in critical condition, they can come and help you out. We'll see now an example of this, where two factions are fighting. And you will see that at the right time, when the guy retreats, this guy can go there and heal his mate. And obviously,
I love the hyped animation when he gets up. He's like, "Let's go!"
And obviously,
I'm good.
He needs to pick up a new weapon because he just dropped it.
So I get flood vibes. Gosh, I hated the freaking flood, the way they would do that. But I've seen this happening in the game. So the idea that these AI can work with each other and get each other up and find weapons and all that stuff, it seems to happen. And then we get into this. MFDs, which we don't have yet.
This also means
it's coming in
that the
4.0.
UI elements are now more relevant to the situation, linked to the operator mode. For example, when we change to scan mode, the crosshair has scanning information about your target, and even the MFDs have changed. Some of these elements can be customized, but we'll see more about that later. For this demo, we're showing the UI developed for this Gladius. Basic information related to navigation will always be available on your view, and this Gladius displays all of that with holograms around the dashboard. But other ships may have different layouts and styles, on brand with the manufacturer. For example, the Drake, that makes more affordable ships, rather than fancy and probably expensive holograms, may use physical screens, dials, and light indicators.
Yeah, they're also going to be customizing HUDs, which is interesting. From there, we go to master modes, which is in the game.
That basically make your head and your body react
This is the
to
Gladius.
the forces they're currently enduring. We're actually increasing them now. We also added rotational G-forces into the mix, so if Brand is now rotating the ship to the left,
Could say ship
you
HUD.
also can see that your head is swaying a little bit. Things get a little bit more interesting when Brand is actually taking boost into the mix. So the now boost forwards, we now added a camera shake, we added FOV changes, and this all then plays together with the other things like, the other exhaustion effects that we have. So overall, the ship should now feel a little bit more reactive than before. The same thing, sorry. At the same time, we reduce the extensions that that the look-ahead code is does.
Yeah, you can buy additional ships.
So we basically narrowed it down a little bit so it mixes better with G-force reactions, so that even when you don't have a head tracker or something like that.
From here, we go to quantum travel, which is changing quite a bit, and I think will be in 4.0, but it's not here yet. So we'll write that down. But I'll let you take a look at what it looks like, because it's pretty cool now.
So what you just saw is basically the failed attempt to quantum travel. Brad wasn't countering the forces, therefore he was thrown out, the quantum bubble collapsed and threw you out. Your ship doesn't like that. IFCS needs 5-6 seconds to recover from that, during which time you're just tumbling, right? And this is not just dependent on your skills. If you think selecting a proper quantum drive doesn't matter in the future, think again. If you want to take care of your quantum drive, you want to repair it and keep it in good shape. So if you buy a cheap one, your travel will not necessarily be faster, but it might be harder. Okay, so Brent shows how it's done properly.
God, this is so cool. I love it.
The bubble is locked. You can now go hands off. Okay, so there's a second variant of quantum travel, and this is for short-range jumps. Sometimes you jump somewhere or you go somewhere, and you see the next point of interest is like 1,200 kilometers away. We're not going to force you anymore to travel that by hand. You will use a technique called quantum boosting.
This is such a big deal. This is the biggest part of master modes, in my opinion, and it just gets skated over. But I think this is exploration gameplay. I'm putting a video out about this tomorrow, talking all about why I think this plus a couple other things are just exploration being made right in front of us, and they're not really explicitly saying it, but it's happening. This is such a big deal. I can't wait for this to be in the game.
Quantum-based short-range jump for like something between a couple of 100 kilometers to like 30,000 kilometers or so. When you use quantum boosting, the process is practically the same, but the quantum bubble will not stabilize itself, so you need to be hands-on for the whole time, and the speeds are naturally, well, slower, but it's not slow, it's still quantum traveling, right? Okay, so Brent, can you boost to, oh, reinforcement needed. Yeah, let's go there, let's boost. Oh, actually, sorry. Thank you. Okay, so what Brent is currently showing here is, I think I forgot to mention, quantum boosting works in every direction. You don't need nav points.
Similar to Super Cruise, yes. Quantum boosting, quantum travel in general is similar to Super Cruise. I'm pretty sure Super Cruise is a separated instance in Elite Dangerous. You could correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe when you are super cruising, it's like it loads when you drop in and drop out, as opposed to when you're quantum traveling, the game is constantly loading, so you're technically moving through that space. You can actually see people quantum travel if you look close enough. You can see them. I'm pretty sure I have a shot. Yeah, this shot here shows. Oh, okay, we lost it. It's gone. Where did it go? Oh, nope, that's not it. Too many things named quantum in this game, so I can't find the actual quantum travel. Oh, there's Tony. Where is it? There we go. So if you watch a ship, you can see them from different perspectives as they travel in and out of quantum travel and during. That's just kind of seeing them leave, and that's the old version. But you can track a ship, and I think that'll help them when it comes to interdiction and stuff.
Brent is awesome, thank you. Okay, so now please boost to reinforcements needed. So if there's an nav point and you boost, your quantum travel system will pick that nav point to go to. Welcome to Pyro 3.
All right. So from here we get into more combat, ship combat stuff, and this is generally this is in the game.
So
I mean, I don't know much. They talk about how AI are kind of characteristic of different flight patterns, which you do kind of see now when you're fighting AI. So I do think this kind of stuff is in the game, but also all the effects you're seeing here are in game, the different aiming modes, all that kind of stuff. They got it in.
Jousters consist of performing straying attacks while by a spy. So if the chaser be the idea is to foresee mailing squads and depending on the combat situation is disengage.
So he's just describing basically how different ships will fight you differently in the game.
Turned into the changer. This maneuver will be seen mailing squads and atmosphere combat. The final phase, which can happen at any time, depending on the combat situation, is disengage. This phase is triggered based on constantly listening to multiple events in parallel. To name a few, critical health, damage to shields, or weapons depleted. There is also a shorter version of disengage that we call pace breaks, which occurs during long periods of combat due to fatigue, nature of the combat encounters. These pace breaks are short, and the main objective is to perform a simple maneuver to gain a new advantage position and strike again. This new flow is what encompasses the core of our new AI fly combat experience, in combinations with AI traits that will give designers the tools to tailor each combat encounter in the verse. Like, for example, they can choose mainly focus on capital ship, like we
You got the new targeting systems.
From
See if they show it off here.
to make sure that meta for the laser here gets scanned. Gonna have usually I can
Just a lot of flying
okay
around.
over the pip.
Here we go.
Okay, so now to
There's a lot of crunchy combat conversation, which we're not going to go into here, but they have been making these changes with master modes, and they have been constantly coming back and forth about how they're going to continue to update with 4.0 and stuff.
the way are we going to do this in the future is with precision targeting mode. Brent? Enable precision targeting mode? There we go.
Here's the new targeting mode for component targeting.
What this does, it does three things. You get this full zoom on the target. You get a lower RPM of your weapons, which increases or decreases the spreads for more precision. And you get the painting mechanic. Anywhere where you put your crosshair on that ship, it will tell the gimbal system where to aim at. So if Brent now attacks the turrets, your aiming system will automatically lead the shots. Bam! One turret down.
This looks more like what I would expect from a space combat game. The ability to punch through the shields in a certain place by aiming specifically at that spot. There's a very fine line here, I think, that they need to tread of doing too much work for the gunner, but also allowing them to feel some reward for like putting in the effort. but it looks good. There's that.
Okay, so this hammerhead now understood that it's not good, that doesn't stand a chance right now, but this will be the way how you in the future will fight against sub-targets and so on. The good thing about this...
Okay, let's drop down in the atmosphere and listen to how the ships fly now.
No, the stick is affecting us. Okay, anyways, we're going to go down as far as possible. So the new aerodynamic system is a complete replacement of the aerodynamic system that you currently have, and you need your control surfaces to actually turn the ship around. It simulates the airflow over your lift surfaces, and therefore the slower you become, the less effective those control surfaces will be in order to turn your ship. So we can demonstrate.
This is all from CitizenCon last year.
And yours left and right. You will see he cannot go further than that. That is in line with what real airplanes also experience when they're trying to use the rudder to yaw left and right. So what Brand can do here is he can roll and he can pull to actually change his direction.
Yeah, rolling and pulling.
Okay, so just for this demo, we added a button. The button is called Thruster Disconnect. Because at the moment in the PU, when you go through a planet, you're using the thrusters to rotate. We're not doing that anymore. So Brent, disconnect the thrusters, please, and put the ship into a purposeful stall. A stall happens when the airflow over a wing ceases, or over a lift surface ceases. And then at some point, you will not have any authority anymore, and your ship will not turn and so on, and you will basically fall out of the sky. That is naturally a state that every plane wants to avoid naturally, right? And this is happening right here. Brent is not able to use the control surfaces right now because the ship is in a process of stalling. However, the airflow will pull the nose back into the wind, and once you have enough speed, he can actually, well, he gets authority back over these control surfaces.
Yeah, so this is this goes back. Let's go back to Star Citizen Invictus 2021, I want to say, and see, gosh, ISC. Was it this one? All Invictus inside Star Citizen. This it? Yeah, okay. So, check this out. Listen to this. This is from May. Oh, this is only 2022, not too long ago. So they gave us some insight into this coming up.
Made things like VTOL mode sort of lose meaning when you can just hover upside down or nose pointing at the ground. Why does it make flying easy, especially for things like the Prospector? While it does make flying easy, especially for things like the Prospector, it does break immersion. Are there any plans to force ships to stay close to horizontal at slow speeds? This would also affect ground combat and make it more necessary, as you wouldn't just be able to point straight down at targets.
Just that one is yes. So it's probably worth explaining. So at the moment we have aero surfaces on these ships, but it doesn't fly like a plane. So they're still driven by the thrusters, but we do change them based on the planet they're on. So they do lose some power in atmosphere, but the thrusters to generate the performance in space have to be certain strengths. To generate the accelerations that we require in space. And then when you fly in atmosphere, you lose some efficiency, but we still need the strength of the thrusters to be able to push the ship through the air. And actually pushing aero surfaces through the air takes a lot of strength to be able to do that. So we are limited in terms of, to get the maneuverability in atmosphere currently, we still need quite strong, we still need quite strong thrusters, which means you can hover quite easily. But that's not always going to be the case. So in the future, we are going to move towards control surfaces. And this is going to allow us to move the movement of the ship from thrusters to aerodynamics. So it's going to be the aerodynamics driving the maneuverability of the ship in atmosphere. And then the thrusters are just going to help a little bit. They're going to help just move the ship and allow the thruster layouts to kind of do their work. But it's not going to be the primary source. So if you're flying a Gladius, for example, and you go really slow, it's just not going to have the power to kind of keep it up. And that's where the VTOL ship's going to come in, where they can transform flying VTOL and hover, and that's where they all have the advantage.
So as you
That
can
means for
see,
you as players, what you can actually do, you can
they were talking about this, and you know, this is one of the things that you hear about this game a lot, is that they will talk about something and it'll disappear. A lot of times when it's said that something will disappear, it's not as acknowledged when it comes back up and it's actually in the game. This isn't actually in the game, but pretty clearly they're sticking to that vision of what they want ships to be able to do in this game based on aerodynamics. And I'm glad to see them finally getting it in, but it is not in yet. They showed it at CitizenCon, but it's not in the live release just yet.
So let's talk about the problem. How do you come to a stop now? To come to a stop with the new system, you need to purposefully put the ship into a stall. But don't worry, when we don't have the thrusters disconnected, IFCS will help you. So you're going to bring down the speed more and more until you're reaching stall speed, which is about now. And then the thrusters will kick in and catch you. That means, however, you are now in a state that the thrusters don't like, right? So at the moment we have turned this up, but in the future you will not be able to hold this for long. So Brent, for example, now from a hover, strafe is left, more left, more left, more left. The wind flow again pulls the ship over, and you go forward again.
Yeah, the thrusters break down as you hover more. That's what he was talking about with VTOL ships having a better experience. I'm going to skip forward here to a little bit of talk about the new locations we're getting. These are more Pyro related, so obviously they're not in game yet. But they are talking about localized gameplay, expanding their library assets. This is still a big deal, even though it's not in the game just yet.
At that point, we'd established our main building modules as well as some of our larger buildings and a number of smaller secondary and dressing and standalone modules. But each outpost couldn't be too large without there being some obvious repetition between the modules used. So let's have a look at that library today. So, in order to achieve that greater visual and design delta between each outpost and have the...
Well, wouldn't that be a little bit of a waste if they only talked about the next quarter at CitizenCon? Because then you basically talk about everything coming in the next quarter, then you have 3 quarters till the next CitizenCon. Of what?
And we go deep by creating multiple thematic overlays for each of those modules as well. I'll go into what that means a little bit in a minute. But the challenge of a sandbox location like this, as you can see, it's not about building a single unique location. That can be quite straightforward, to be fair.
Full Trez VTOL.
It's about giving our artists and designers
Thought I heard about
the
that,
building
yeah.
blocks, the affordance to build and play. Or it can't. When ingredients, we like to think we've done a pretty good job with that. But that's me. Using this expanded library, we've been able to increase the individual location size because there's less of that obvious repetition between buildings within any single location. And we can't really call some of these large locations outposts anymore. They become something more like settlements and imply a larger and more established community. Now, as a player, it will mean a lot more to explore and do at any single individual location with a localized and personal feeling mission types that might see you moving around a single settlement to complete objectives or doing short hop missions between clusters of settlements on a
I
single
love
planet.
that. That's super key. That's the only reason I wanted to have that in here. Again, this is stuff that's not in. It's expected with 4.0. A lot of base stuff. Somebody asked if there are cities in Pyro. This is about as close as you get. The colonialism-based settlements that people are kind of living off the land of, it's not super dedicated.
Themes are independent theme.
Well, there's a big difference between 3 to 4 months and 5 years. I think, 1 year outlook makes the most sense for CitizenCon, which is what they did here. This is the stuff that they feel like they can do in 12 months. And I think ever since 2022, they've started to aim more for that kind of vibe. Still not quite there, but with less of the engine being made and more of these relatively more straightforward developments, I think it's easier for them to estimate what's actually coming in 12 months. Little outposts and stuff. Moving on, we have space stations in the Pyro system, which are holy
Planet
crap,
2,
guys.
the
If you
great-
haven't gotten to play Pyro, these space stations, they're still quite similar to one another, so it's not like they're going to be wildly different, but man, they're huge. They're huge, and they are much more based on factions and exploration and stuff. So I think these will be a nice addition to the game, but I would hold off on saying they're going to change everything right away, you know, in terms of what we think of space stations.
Point 4, otherwise known as
Hey Panic, how you doing, dude? Good to see you in chat. Little hint of engineering there. Again, this is something that's not in the game, but this part, the reputation, it has started to enter the game and is one of the more key elements of Pyro. This is probably the biggest thing of Pyro they're adding, is really their ability to use reputation to affect the way we experience the game with factions and security and stuff. I hope it goes well.
the reputation gate in the entry deck affect gameplay. What happens if we have good reputation? So if you had good reputation, you could go straight through. This is no fuss, and it's the quickest way to maneuver through the station. However, you've got to put the time and the effort in to get to this point. What happens if you neutral reputation? So you might be waved through, maybe you have to pay a bribe, and you don't want to pay, so you're going to have to find an alternate pathing. Or you're going to have to build up your reputation. If you have bad reputation, and for all you naughty ones out there, I know some of you exist, this applies to you. In short, you're going to have a tough time, but you have options. So stealth via other pathways might be one of those options. You build your reputation.
This is
up from
kind of
scratch.
like the same system you use for bounty hunting, but when you get that reputation with the bounty hunting guild, this would be like rep with, you know, the dusters or something.
Into several traversal areas.
All right, moving on. Here is some more interesting information about what I think is some of the biggest signs of exploration. Again, this goes in line with quantum boost, FPS scanning, and other things they've shown us. They are developing completely different types of space stations. They can create procedurally, put different types of NPCs in there, put loot in there, make missions that go there, possibly even fauna or aliens that can be in there. But the scale of abandoned space stations is much bigger than I think they gave it time in this CitizenCon, but I'm guessing we'll see a lot more about it later. Probably coming with Pyro once again. This is not in the game just yet, but it is something they showed at CitizenCon, so we should be kind of expecting it this year.
Have a quick look at the current abandoned area on Checkmate.
Very, very small amount of coverage because I don't think they have a lot that they've built into it yet. But as locations go, pretty impressive one. Then we've got here the distribution centers. We've already seen this in game, so we know this is going to be there. Well, we know it is there. We're literally playing this. Two-Face, thanks for watching the video. Yeah, if you have any more questions, feel free to throw them in chat. What ship should you buy after your starter Mustang? What are you looking to get into? Yeah, AI can live their own life, but only certain types of AI. Not every NPC you run into. There'll be specific types of AI called virtual AI. And that's years old information. They might have changed the name or something, but the idea is that AI will be able to go around in the game functioning on their own, racking up a bounty. Just test everything. If you're aiming to just test everything and you're starting out with a Mustang, if you're feeling confident, I would consider trying to aim for a Cutlass Black, but that is a bit of a jump from the Mustang, because the Mustang's not necessarily the best money-making ship. Could also look at the Nomad. And if you really want to take things easy, the Avenger Titan would be reasonable. You're still getting an interior, you're still getting to try out the game at a higher level than the Mustang, but it's not going to break your bank like a Cutlass or a Nomad.
The corporate spaces at these locations, please welcome Rainer Rick to the stage.
All right, that's distribution centers. On to the next one, cargo systems and the updates they're doing to that whole career path.
And so almost every aspect of the game has some kind of involvement with cargo. And I'm going to briefly go through some of them now. So let's start with missions. How will hauling contracts work in-game?
Hamster of Doom, thanks for hanging out.
The Interstellar Transport Guild, as well as formalizing some of the main hauling and cargo companies that you'll be working with. As you do more hauling contracts, you will build up your reputation and relationship with the guild. This will lead you to gaining more lucrative contracts for specialized cargo and destinations, such as different forms of hazardous cargo, perishable cargo, riskier routes, and more. So what do I mean by hazardous and perishable? Well, as you know, there's lots of commodities in the game.
So that's very, very quick preview of the cargo systems. And then, of course, the big one, I think our final closing of day 2. This guy. This was a big deal, but they did have to reveal this at some point. I'll give you the full look. Oh yeah, this is big end game energy. This is what a lot of the game's going to lead to eventually. Acquiring it's a simple loop, right? Acquiring land, securing the land, acquiring the resources to build on that land, and then using those facilities to make more money, either building other stuff, housing stuff, or doing other things. Like, this is so much could center around this, which is why they're introducing it now. 4.0 is coming, server meshing is here. Their big long-term milestone is almost in the game. They need something else as their long-term, here's what to look forward to kind of thing. It's partially marketing, mostly marketing, but also partially communicating the direction of the game. This music gives me so much Satisfactory vibes. Yeah. And so then, you know, he goes on and gives a lot of detail about how security systems will work, about how you can get a base in certain areas and you'll get protected, but you're going to have to pay more. And trust me, you're going to have to pay not real money. I mean, like in-game fees and stuff. How it's going to work in terms of what ships can do the building. Just a lot of details, but it's still in the design phase, so we're not going to talk much about it here. That wraps up day 2 of CitizenCon. And from there we got about 17 things, Glad base building in, that we haven't seen. And that's, you know, you could take away or add some things in there. I'm not going to actually go through day 1 because that will take a very long time. But you can get an idea of how they've been doing so far, delivering the stuff they talked about towards the end of last year in Star Citizen this year, which is, I would say, considerably better than they ever did in previous years. We can quickly go and look at this first day. We're looking at graphics and cloud improvements, right? Those are in the game. Looking at fire hazard and engineering. These things are actually not in the game. Fire hazard, engineering. Put both those in there. Water effects are in the game. Oh, so we don't have to add those. I'm just going to speedrun this one, yeah? You go on to scope effects. Those are in the game. HDR, that's in the game. A lot of this stuff from the first day is in the game. Temporal upscaling, added to the game. What we don't have, oh, we do have the shadow stuff. We don't have global illumination, which I think they go over here. Vulkan renderer in the game. Not multi-threading, but the Vulkan renderer itself, the API.
So we can't quite release it yet, but we're looking into them fully online.
Global illumination, not in game.
Like a soft lighting that affects the entire, that takes from the entire scene and lights up the pixel. And then
continue on. Man, they did a lot of global illumination, huh? Starcloth, not in the game. Did we already look at that? Yeah, that's already here.
And that's
We've got hair stuff that is in the game. Good job on that. Maelstrom, not in the game. This is insane, okay? This is like Battlefield Bad Company times 2 multiplied by Battlefront. And this is going to be, I don't know how they do this.
I would like to do that video that I believe speaks for itself.
Other than, you know, switching over to Unreal Engine 5 and using Nanite. No, I'm kidding. Check out their destruction model.
See the water splashes?
There's I believe there's one more they can show us here. So, how this works with bases and settlements and stuff, I don't know. We'll have to look more into that. But it's crazy what they're trying to do, and they've done a lot of detail. This whole segment they're talking about the technology behind it. But it's these kinds of things are the reason that they spent all this time building their own engine, because they wanted to be able to do these things with the specific things they have built, with all the systems that they have dictated, so that it's more efficient based on what they're doing, and it works for the applications they want. We're now at the period where we might see if that pays off or not, and I'm excited to see when Maelstrom comes in, but it's still not quite here. What else we got? Audio effects. I don't think we have the new audio effects here, but the best of this is probably the ship-based realistic effects people have been waiting for a long time. Check this out.
Create a sense of danger, of being out on your own and under threat. Here's an example of ship combat. Sounds good, but what if we wanted a little more realism? The audio propagation tech that we've been rolling out makes it easier to change the soundscape in real time, and a nice use of that technology is to provide a more realistic option.
So audio effects still aren't in, but they have been working on that. And then we've got
go from the smallest scope to the largest scope.
the big one, the server meshing demo. Obviously, this isn't in game yet. This is a 4.0 thing. We'll put it up here just to be a little petty.
On that green server and just replicate it on the other server. And now
Fog? I think the fog is in with the lighting effects we got. Engineering we've already touched on. That's not in game yet. Well, it's in Arena Commander. Does that count?
So the destroyed shield generator.
I would say we don't have to count that yet. Let's put engineering on here. Oh, we did.
Team and the arena.
Cosplay contest. This is the ships. New ships. RSI Zeus. Mystery ship. Polaris. Legionnaire. And Mirai ship. Those are the things we haven't seen from this panel. Just some ship talk, though. I honestly, of all the things at CitizenCon, if the ships were the ones that slipped, we would be blessed for it. So I'm not really that concerned with tracking ships, but we did, just to make sure, just to cover our bases. Last thing they show here is the FPS stuff, which is FPS radar and scanning. New Mobi glasses up there.
And you can even cycle the floors that you're on to isolate
new map system.
the visuals of the floor that you're on.
Downloadable maps are not here,
So
though.
our current objective, it's much more interesting if we can actually take this on the go. So let's download it to our data bank. As you'll notice, we now have the representation of the environment in the upper left corner of our visor.
So yeah, downloading maps is not something we have yet, and that kind of complicates things, I think, when they add it. But that's it. Then there's the star map. So of all of CitizenCon, really, and this is skimming, we probably missed a couple things. 30 things that still need to be added. Now, I've been counting, and I got around 24 to 25 things that they've added so far from CitizenCon. And I missed some of the stuff that they brought in here. So I would say they're actually about halfway through all the things they said. And if they, this is a lot of stuff though. These are big things. I mean, I put Pyro as its own line item, but that includes the settlements, the space stations, all that. We know that comes easily, but it bolsters this list. I don't think they'll get all of this in by the end of the year. And I don't think they plan on it either. I think they wanted to get most of these things in, but some of it just naturally won't make it. Base building, I don't think so. Bay building, I guess. I don't think that'll be in this year. Not every ship that they talked about will probably be in. Audio effects might not be in. Control surfaces probably won't be in. There are definitely some things that are iffy, but they actually seem like they're making some pretty good progress this year, at least in terms of the expectations that they have set. We'll have to see what goes on with server meshing testing over this summer, but things are looking pretty good. And compared to this time last, oh my God, this time last year, that was so much different. Things were not looking good. So I'm glad to be in 2024 because it's feeling a little bit better.